Reflect and Reset with Maria and Gina.
Here again.
How you doing, partner?
Getting through every day is a challenge, but we're getting through. All good. Yeah.
Yeah, people that follow us, they know that you've lost someone very dear to you in um, Johnny. So I know that, you're going through a lot and the whole family is struggling with the loss of somebody very special to you. So
Yeah.
I'm,
So it's,
I'm, I'm sorry.
it's the time, and if it's not the virus that kills you, it's the lack of being able to get to your doctor, because of the fear of the virus that are killing people. And it affected our family. And, we thought we were going to slide through this, but we didn't. So we're just going to have to get through one day at a time and be there for each other,
Yeah. So many people are struggling. My God, we keep hearing stories. As you all know, we're doing the testing here, the COVID-19 testing for the virus and also for the antibody. And we hear the stories, and it makes it, in a way, it makes us feel good that we are making a difference on people's life. Gina, the other day, one of my friends said how he was able to hug his son for the first time in a month because he tested negative after being positive.
Right.
So these are the stories also that we get to hear. Before we start our show, I want to thank Henry Ramos from Deadline TV. Thank you so much for your support during this time in helping us have our show and be ready to be able to bring guests like the one we have today. So we want to welcome a friend, someone very dear to me, Coach Kevin, that happened to be the coach of my son, Franco. And the one that actually, when they renewed their wedding vows, he was the one that was there for them in supporting them. So, Coach, welcome to our show, Reflect and Reset with Maria and Gina. How are you?
Thank you. I am excited to be here, and I'm well. I'm only sorry my wife isn't here. We're in Houston, and there's tornadoes and thunderstorms, and somehow I have power and she doesn't. Hopefully that doesn't change. It's fun to live in the South. We love the weather. I've actually missed it because we've been living out in California for the last couple of years, and chose to move our family in the middle of COVID-19, not because of COVID-19, but it just happened in the middle. But yeah, she would love to be here, but unfortunately, the power has seen otherwise, so there's no power around. So I'm super happy to be here.
That's awesome. And I know we were waiting for your wife, to join us, and I was excited to have her perspective as well. But the show must go on, and I'm sure you're going to do justice to your marriage life and sharing it with us. So, GC, we have some questions for Coach Kevin.
Well, first thing that
you can have my wife on next week, and she can tell you all the opposite of.
But I think people misunderstand what a coach is. I think before we even get into it, you should explain what type of coach you are.
Sure. So I have done basically a business and life coach at the highest level for the last 4 years. And the difference between like a coach and a counselor, right? A counselor's there to like hear you, put you through some therapy. The best way I have to explain what I am as a coach is I'm going to get you to your next step, or you're going to decide you don't want to take that next step. Just like a coach in football, or just like a coach in soccer, or whatever sport it is you played when you were young, kind of look at where you are, see where you want to go, help you get clear. Here's where you are. Where do you want to go? And okay, what are the next steps to get going? Now, we're a little different than a lot of coaches because we really focus on feet on the ground, like actual things you can actually do to make a difference, not just thinking. If you think about how human beings progress, they have an insight, and then that insight usually sparks them to see what the end result is. So like I have the insight, oh, I want to be thin, right? And then I see mastery, which is usually in today's world, we see exactly to the end. We see the most thin, perfect person. And our mind is like, yeah, I want that. But there's a bunch of actions to take in the middle. And if I was to explain to a coach, it's like you have an insight and you see the end of where you want to be. A coach is someone who helps you take all those actions in the middle and reminds you that there's no fast forward button in life.
Right. Because people will stop. I mean, ultimately, it gets too difficult, right? Because you get out of your comfort zone, and then you're like, nah, I don't really want it that badly. I'm happy the way I am. Or, like Franco says, you don't look in the mirror, you're not really looking at yourself in the mirror. But that's interesting.
Comfort is poison, right? Like comfort is poison. But it's kind of like alcohol. Alcohol is poison, so it has this really happy effect, and it kind of slows you down. And comfort's kind of like that. We love it, but it will poison us if we're not careful. So kind of my job is to like poke and make sure that you're just not 100% comfortable where you are to give you an incentive to go. Because on our own, most of us will just settle into where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that, I've seen the work you do through my son. I mean, and Gina actually as well, because, Gina and I sort of share our families, whatever challenges we have, we go through them together. And I remember, for the about almost 2 years that my son was going through such a hard time, and he's very open about it. He's been in our show and he's talked about all of the changes and how he went about it in the program that you've been his coach, and the changes in his life has been life altering. And not only do you alter the being Franco, but that means that his entire family is actually affected. So the work you do is so beautiful because you're impacting not just one person, but everybody that follows that person. And you were talking about getting uncomfortable. Getting uncomfortable is the key, right? Because man, you really get people uncomfortable.
Yes, because here's the thing. The most uncomfortable thing in the world is telling the truth. Just telling the truth, right? Like as people, we lie all the time, and we lie for a reason. We learn to lie. Like we're 3 years old, we spilled the milk. Oh, the dog did it, right? And then we don't get a whipping and the dog is like in trouble and we're fine. So we learn to lie, but as an adult, it just doesn't serve us. Any pain that a lie alleviates creates 10 times the pain somewhere else in our life. And so like the biggest thing is just getting people to be able to tell the truth. Just be who you are. Like just be who you are. And I'm not sure why, but that terrifies a lot of people. It just absolutely terrifies them to just be themselves, because when we stop lying, then we really show who we are. And for most of us, we're scared to show who we really are because we're afraid people will judge us or they won't like us or what have you. But the truth is, while we project out something that's not us, people fall in love with the projection. They fall in love with the lie. And so if we want to have really connected, meaningful relationships, the only way to do that is to stop lying. But it's really scary. So what we do in our programs is we create an environment where it's safe. Like, hey, come and try it. Come tell us some truth. And you're going to see, like, when you're real, yeah, it's true. Like if I've been hiding, secretly, like, I don't know, let's just say that I love meat and I've been hiding and pretending like I'm a vegetarian, right? My friend group is going to tend to be vegetarians because I'm vegetarian. I'm pretending like I'm secretly at night, I eat meat, right? Like I just eat it. I have it hidden in the closet where none of my friends will see it. I eat meat. Well, what's going to happen when I come out and say meat? Well, sure. Lots of my friends are going to be like, whoa, wait a second. But then I'll have this whole other friend group of people who like meat, who like to eat steak, and now they'll become my friends. So it's the number one thing is like, just tell the truth. Just have the courage to be who you are. And I get it. It takes courage. It takes courage to just really be who you are. But there is no greater reward. Like nothing in your life will bring a higher value than just being who you are. It's like the easiest thing to do because it's just being yourself. But it's so scary to let go of that weight. We carry the weight of these masks and facades that we put on all through our life.
It's true. People don't want to be judged. They don't want to be judged. And the worst thing is you don't want to judge yourself. It's hard to look at yourself and say, wow, am I capable of this? Or this is the person that I am. And it's not an easy task. I get it. You put up these walls and these facades to make yourself feel better and to make other people look at you in a different light.
And it's kind of like I had a COVID-19 test. So a couple of weeks ago, we were moving and I got something in my eye and I went to the doctor and they're like, well, this could be pink eye and that could be COVID-19. So I ended up getting the test. And I don't know, for those of you who've gotten the test, it's like they touch your spine, through your nose. I mean, that thing just keeps going. I don't know how. I didn't realize there was that much space up in my nose, but I found out very uncomfortably. So for those of you who had the test, I have had it. And I can tell you there's no COVID in my back. But it was weird because there's that you get the test and then you have 2 days, like 1 or 2 days to get the test back. And it's like, man, I was confident I didn't have it. I had no, but then you start nervous, like, oh, what if I have it? Well, what does this mean? Well, what does this not mean? Like, what if it says yes? Now I can't hug my family. Now I can't hug my wife. Like, am I going to have to go to a different house? Am I going to have to go to the hospital? Like, what's crazy is all of the stories that I'm telling myself about a test that I knew I wasn't positive for. Like, I have had no symptoms. I got something in my eye. That's what happened. I knew that happened. But once you get the test, like, oh man, maybe I have it. The stories that I tell about COVID-19 are heavier than the actual. That doesn't mean that the actual is not heavy. So don't hear me say that this isn't serious. It is super heavy. But all the stories I tell about it can run 1,000 times faster than the reality. So in the 2 days before I get my test, I have it and I don't have it, and this is fine, and I'm going to die 1,000 times over, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And those stories, the biggest thing that we can do to help ourselves inside of COVID-19 is to start to combat those stories and start seeing, hey, what's really real? And then what is just really a story that I'm telling myself?
Yeah. That is, the integrity we were talking about, telling the truth. Integrity, to live a life of integrity is, I think, one of the hardest thing to do. But it is really the only way. And I've seen it with my son. I go back to Franco because, my God, the biggest transformation that I've seen in my life of a human being is with Franco. And really what it took was for him to be living a life of integrity. And he works at it every day, because integrity is something that, like we were saying, it doesn't come easy. So you have to be working at it every day on those daily deposits. What I love about your program is that you concentrate on men and women. So I know that you also coach some of the ladies too, but your wife concentrates on coaching the ladies. So can you talk a little bit about, and then we want to bring it to the marriage, like how, because ultimately I know that a lot of the men that are being coached by you, they're people that are married. So they're working on themselves to be able to get their marriage stronger, or decide if this is not the real thing, then they can make a decision. So that's the goal. So how does your wife program works differently than your program with the men?
Sure. So one of the things we do, there's 3 ways that you can come into our programs, right? One of them is a women's program, Awaken Athena. And it's just women. It's for women with women's issues. It's not a couples program. It's just for women, right? This is a place. It's a safe place. It's a place to go and find powerful women who are willing to live in integrity. And I'll get back to that because it is very difficult. If you're a man, you'll come in through a program called Forge Legend, right? Now, Forge Legend is just a men's group. It's exactly the same stuff, right? Different conversation because it's all men. Now, why do we divide the sexes? Because first off, it takes away any like sexual tension. Like if we have an event or whatever, we don't need people like this isn't a dating event. This isn't it. By separating, guys can get more real, women can get more real with what's really going on with themselves. We also have a couples program that has yet to launch. Its first event was supposed to be right when COVID hit. It was supposed to be at the end of April, early May. Obviously, it was the wrong time to do a couples event. That's called Forge Family. That's coming. So you can come in as a man, as a woman, or as a family, right? The only way that we mix is whenever we come in as a couple and we do have a special program there. What the purpose of it is, you can see it over my shoulder here, is truth first, integrity always. You can kind of see half of it because of the way the background is. Truth first, integrity always. Like in your life, if you want to get ahead, if you want to be truly happy, if you want to actually create a life worth living that you want to live, you've got to be able to tell the truth. But telling the truth is not enough. And this is a big part of the problem in our country right now, a big part of the problem in our inability to have a dialogue back and forth, like when we disagree. Because if you just center yourself on truth only and there's no integrity behind it, you're not going to get very far. Because even though truth is amazing, even though truth has value, what I found is truth is a lot like air. So truth is a lot like air. When you don't have it, it has tremendous, incredible value. If I was to take you and tie you down underwater, so you're 10 feet down, you're tied to something underwater, air would suddenly have a tremendous value in your life. In fact, after a minute, about a minute, literally, you would start considering like, hey, if I have a knife, I'm going to take my hand because it's better than dying, because air has that much value. The crazy thing is, though, once you breathe at the top, like right now in our life, to me and you, air has not that much value, right? Like it's everywhere. It doesn't have a lot of value. Now, if you're a COVID-19 patient and you can't breathe, air has tremendous value, right? So truth is like air. When you don't have it, it has tremendous value. But as soon as you have it, as soon as you're able to tell the truth in your life, then the value of that truth goes to very low. You have to have integrity to come behind it. Because why? Because the truth changes. Like if at 50 years old, I have all the same opinions that I had when I was 20, I have completely wasted 30 years of my life. I mean, just completely. And it doesn't mean that 20-year-olds are wrong. And it doesn't mean that all 50-year-olds are right. It just means that who I am progresses and evolves. Same in a relationship. A relationship year 1 versus year 10 versus year 20 versus year 50, they're going to evolve. This is where integrity comes in, because integrity says, hey, you know what? Sometimes things get out of whack. Like think about a building, right? You guys are in New York. You guys are the masters of giant buildings. Okay? You can build a 1-story building out of mud and sticks that looks every bit as good as a 1-story building built out of cement and metal. You can, and they're almost identical on the inside. You can use the same materials on the inside. You can build an amazing building. And it's true. Everything will be square. It'll look the same. It'll feel the same. The difference is if you use cement and steel, as you guys know more than I do, you can go up 120 stories. Mud and bricks, you get to the 2nd floor and that collapses. It's true. It was all done right. It was all done right angles, but the materials themselves don't have the strength to support anything really big. Inside of relationships, inside of our lives, we need to live to a higher standard than just the truth. This is, I love COVID-19 for this, because everybody's right. Like everybody's right. It's just like the flu, and it's absolutely different from the flu. Like it's both. And that what we're missing is the integrity inside of it. I got my friends like, I'll never wear a mask. And then I have my other friends like, they probably sleep with the mask, right? Well, who's right? Well, everyone's right. We have to find the integrity behind it. Do I think that a mask will save my life? No. Do I think that a mask stops my spit from getting on other people, and that's probably a really good idea? Yes. Do I think that a mask is a really simple way to make things a little bit safer, so who really cares about the medical testing? Yes. Like that's where you start to get to integrity beyond the truth, where you start to see like, hey, we've grown. Like when we started out, XYZ was amazing, but right now XYZ doesn't seem right. It's true that we loved XYZ, but now I don't. So in integrity, it's up to me in a relationship to say, hey, I think I'm changing. I used to love XYZ, but now I like ABC. What is this? When you have integrity, you're constantly coming back and course correcting the little things that happen. You're constantly refinishing. And you have a relationship or a life that's strong enough to accommodate a changing truth. And this is what we're missing.
I have a question, Coach. I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you know what's real? How do you know what's real? You're talking about integrity and you're talking about A, B, and C and X, Y, and Z, but how do you know what's real? You know, when you go walk around believing something, in your life, and you're thinking that you're living a life of integrity, how does somebody actually know that they're not, that they're living pretty much a lie? I mean, because right now I can tell you, I believe I live a life of integrity, but maybe I don't. Maybe I'm not as to that level that I should be.
Here's the beautiful thing. So I grew up, I had a really rough relationship, like damn near abusive relationship with mine. I looked just like a man who raped her when she was young. Just like she had an uncle who had raped her when she was young. And once I hit puberty, I looked exactly like him. So this gave us a really tough relationship, right? I constantly triggered. I didn't know this for a long time. I didn't know this when I was young, right? But I remember going to a counselor one time and saying, I think I'm going crazy because my mom loves me, but she hates me at the same time. And I think I'm going crazy. I can feel the love from her, but she hates me. Now, this is before I understood that I looked like a man raped her. I didn't know any of this. And the counselor said something very, very interesting to me that I think helps to answer your question. He said, son, let me tell you something right off the bat. Crazy people don't come to counselors to find out if they're crazy. So I can put you at ease. If you were crazy, you would know you were right and you would never question. So I can tell you that you're not out of your mind because you're here asking me if you're out of your mind. And people who are out of their mind don't question. And for me, I believe we're creating our own reality all the time. All the time. Everything that happens to us. Like if right now this coffee cup, that I have here was to fall off the desk and smash, I would have a story. In a millisecond, I would know what happened. I would think, well, I bumped the desk and it fell, or I would think a big gust of, the air conditioner must have blown really hard. Like my brain is an engine that just constantly creates my reality. Like think about how amazing you are. Like whoever's watching this right now, you're watching a screen, but in your life, your body is 52% of your brain is visual acuity. So that's just your brain taking in all the stuff we see. Right? And then we're smelling right now. Everybody's got a smell. Everybody's feeling things. Everybody's got an internal temperature. Like all of your senses are working and your body 24/7 is recording this. It's creating your reality. How do I know that it's creating your reality? Like how can I prove to you that you're creating your reality and I'm creating mine? Again, I'm not saying that like your world is different than mine, but here's the deal. We could be at a stop sign or a stoplight. If you're colorblind, you don't see red, green, yellow. You just see lights in a certain configuration. I'm not colorblind, so I see red, yellow, green. But if you're colorblind, you see brown, yellow, brown. You don't see red and green. They look the same to a colorblind person. Colorblindness helps us to see how we all create our own reality. There is something here. Like this is actually a cup, right? I'm not saying that it's not, but we all have our own perception of that. And I think for integrity, the way to know that you're in integrity is you're willing to question, right? We have a document called the Spark, and the Spark helps you to question stories that you have. You might have this story that so-and-so really harmed me. And we have a methodology. It takes about 10 minutes. It doesn't take long, but to question that story. Is that really true? Right? Is it really true that this person harmed you? And by questioning the story, we start to see a bigger picture. Right? And then we start to choose, okay, so what do I choose to believe? Because one of the hardest things about life is just believing the first thing that you think every time something happens. Most of us, that's how we live. We're on default all the time. Like I'm at the stop sign, somebody crosses the stop sign out of turn, I almost hit them, and I have a story, oh, what a jerk. Right? Then someone else tells me, hey man, that guy's wife was in the passenger seat having a baby. Now look at how my perspective changed. I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad that he went. That's awesome. Right? One story brings me to one emotion, another story brings me somewhere else. And I think to be in integrity is we consider more than just the first story, and we start to see that there is a lot of truth out there. And what bothered me about the person cutting me off is the belief that he ought not to have. And as soon as I think, oh man, he was getting his baby to be delivered, doesn't bother me at all. I'm super happy to wait.
Yeah. Perspective. Everything is perspective, right? They say. So let's talk a little bit before we, go to the end of the show. Marriage. I mean, I think a lot of marriages are being tested right now during COVID-19 and in this quarantine. What do you think about it? And how has this affected your marriage?
Sure. So for us, not only are we married, but we run programs together. So we work together and we have 5 children and we've been stuck in the house. The first 40 days was just all in the same house for 40 days. I think a lot of marriages are being tested because a lot of marriages have been built on space away from one another. Like hey, I work full time, you work full time, we hit each other up at night, hang out a little bit, maybe we kiss in the morning, but pretty much there's a lot of space away. Right now, marriages are being forced to live like this. When you're just first getting married, you're all about let's spend every minute together, but actually spending every minute together is a totally different thing, especially when for a lot of people, they can't spend a minute with anyone else. You just sit on top of each other over and over and over. We have started to create space for ourselves. There's a saying, familiarity breeds contempt. The closer we are with someone, there's just going to be these rub points. So we've actually started to create space where it's like, hey, I'm going to take a bath, or just close the bedroom, for wit. I'm like, hey, take a couple hours, close the door. I'm out with the kids. And even though that seems strange, that it's really, she's just in the other room, at least she knows she can have some space, do whatever she wants, take a bath, sleep, do nothing, watch TV, work, do the same stuff she would have done otherwise. But I think that forced contact, that it's going to stress. If your relationship has a whole lot of assumptions and has a whole lot of unsaid things, or maybe your relationship runs on white lies, that's going to come crashing down, because there is no way to maintain the white lie when you're together 24/7. There just isn't, right? So if you have even if you have a relationship based on truth, like my wife and I, it's just tough to be around the same people, and people have lost social structures. My 5-year-old son was acting out. He was really acting up. And I said, man, what is going on? And he looked at me and he said, Dad, I have no friends. All of my friends are gone. And I was like, I'm like, no, they're not gone. We're just quarantined. He said, they're gone. Where are they? And in his little mind, he can't even imagine them at a different house. They're not in his life, so they're gone. For the first time in his life, he has an imaginary friend. He's never had an imaginary friend, but now he has this imaginary friend. Why? He went from seeing 30, 40, 50, 60 other kids a day to no one. He's the only 5-year-old in his world. All of his siblings are teenagers, and then he hangs out with us 40-year-olds. So he has completely lost his social outlets. Well, in a lot of relationships, on a different level, the same thing happens. There's a loss that we are feeling, and we don't know how to deal with it. And here's where we bring the whole thing full circle, Gina. Default story is, I'm with you all day long, and I'm feeling a certain way. Guess what your mind is naturally going to think? Oh, why am I feeling this way? Well, what do I see in front of me? You. It's very difficult for our mind to think, I'm feeling this way because of the mix of losing thousands or hundreds or dozens of acquaintances I used to have that now all boil down to this person. It's much simpler for our mind to say, this person's making me feel this way. And then we start to prove it. But the truth is, we're all suffering a collective loss, right? I hate the word social distancing because it's physical distancing. We're actually probably more social during this quarantine than we've ever been, doing things like this. There's plenty of, in fact, there's probably way too much social if you're on the social media, right? There's plenty of social, but we've lost so many connections. And sometimes in feeling that loss, we'll blame the person who's in front of us. I'm feeling this general sense of unease because I miss my friends. But that's a very complex thing. I'm coaching thousands of people. So I hear the complaints over and over and over. And when they're complaining about their wife or their husband, you dig just a little deeper and it's like, man, I miss my friends. I had this one guy at work and we always worked together and we always sorted our shit out, and I haven't been able to talk to him for 6 weeks. So I haven't sorted my stuff out for 6 weeks. People feel that loss, but then what do they see? They see their partner, and a lot of times it's just, well, I'm feeling this way, and this is what I see, and our brain just kind of sticks it together. So that what I see is why I'm feeling this way. It's not true, right? But again, it's about.
And you take a lot of things for granted, and being away from work, being away from you, Maria, was really hard for a very long time. And I have a very great relationship with my husband, and but it was very hard. And now being back in the office and being back in my life, you start to appreciate the things that you took for granted. Now, I never took you for granted, Maria, but the truth is, it really is true though. You realize the things that you miss and the people that you miss so much. And it's not because I love him less. I love him even more because, the way that we join together is so tight. But what I realized is I needed that extra space. I need it, and I live in an 800 square foot apartment, so I can't just run off to, take a bath, if you will. But anyway, it's you take things for granted, like you said with the air. You take things for granted, and then once you have it back, and you get back into your normal life, you start to take a little bit for granted again. But so I get it.
And
yeah. So
if you look at our program to help you through this, look, for anybody, if you go to Awaken Athena, you go to forgelegend.com right now, you can sign up. There's no sell. Because of COVID-19, we decided it started out for 30 days. Now it's 60 days. So until June 1st at least, and we may extend it again, there's no upsell. There's no credit card. You sign up, we will give you some of the greatest tools we have. And those tools are all intended to help you process through these emotions and question your own thoughts. One of our tools is called Breathe Fire. And it's literally a tool that just says, okay, I'm super angry at this person, maybe my wife, maybe my husband, okay? And then it just says, okay, what'd they do? Why is this their fault? What's wrong about this? What do you wish would happen to them? What do you wish they would do instead? What is this? Why would we do that? Because it gives you a safe place for anger. Anger is a very productive emotion. Anger could be extremely productive when it's in the right place, when it's in the right context, and when it's handled in a productive manner. It can turn to a very destructive rage, right? Rage is very rarely a useful emotion, but without anger, we would never change. Anger is the energy of change. So we have tools to say, hey, I'm angry about this. Good. Well, let's let you express that in a safe place, not to the person, right? It's okay to let that out. It's not okay to let that out by hitting someone or just screaming the first thing that comes to your mind to your spouse, but in a controlled place, in a controlled space, let it out and then see what you see. Because a lot of times when we let it out, there's so many times I've used this tool in a conflict with Whitney, or she's used it in a conflict with me, where we just express it, again, not to each other, but in this tool. And it's man, that's dumb. I realized I was feeling that way, and I was really convinced that she was working against me. But when I say it out loud, yeah, no, I don't think she feels, that's crazy, right? But unless we express it, we don't see it. We don't see it hit the air, and we don't have that opportunity to say, okay, maybe I'm just feeling a certain way. You can't.
I have to say, Coach, that that's what I love about your program, that there are so many tools. Sometimes I say to Franco, how do you get through? It seems like so much structure. But what I realized, and I have my coffee dates with Franco every Friday, and I actually spend a lot of time with my son. As you know, I have benefit from many of the tools that he's learned from your program. And I find them, tremendously helpful, because like you say, I'm somebody that believes in therapy, but at the same time, I think this is sort of like a little bit of a crash course, if I want to say, because you're speeding up the process by all these different tools. And what you have to do is, first, you have to be committed. You have to say, do I want to really work on myself? Am I broken to the point that I'm going to listen to what somebody else is offering me? And here I have an opportunity to find tools that I could utilize on a daily basis to create a foundation that is stronger than the foundation I have, because it's not working. So that's one of the things that I truly love about your program. Both, because I ended up attending your wife's program, and I know I see one my son, and I have friends, very close friends, that are doing the women's program. So I'm a big promoter of your program. I think many people, especially now that if you're doing this for free for a month or so, it's crazy not to try it. Seriously. I am thrilled. Go ahead.
It's a master class. It's a master class in living the life that you want to live and being who you want to be. Because if you live your life on feelings, it's going to be hard. I love feelings. You have to feel your feelings. But if you let your feelings, your emotions dictate who you are, you're in trouble. I know you've run a marathon. I've run a marathon. I've finished an Ironman. How many times during your marathon did you feel like stopping, right? I felt all over the place in my marathon. In my Ironman, I felt like I was going to quit. In fact, I did quit, And as soon as I quit in my mind, I heard my kids. I was at the transition, and I'm like, man, I did not prepare for hills on the bike. I'm done. And then I heard my kids, yeah, Dad, right? And then when they did that, I had a whole new feeling, which is like, okay, I can't finish the run, but I'm going to run past my kids, and then I'm going to quit. That was it. Like, I didn't want to let my kids down. I literally had a plan to just run past them a certain amount so they couldn't see me, and then I was going to quit. But by the time I passed them, I had a new feeling, and then I had a new feeling, and then I had a new feeling, and you know what? I finished the race. And it's the same in life. Like, how you feel is important, and it should be honored, but it's not the only thing.
Right. So, say it again.
No baby would ever be born if we only did things like doing, right? It's amazing after, but I've seen the process 5 times, and there's a lot of things that happens during that process that nobody feels like doing. It's just got to happen. You know, bringing life into the world is amazing and painful and wonderful and horrible, and life and death and everything in between all at the same time. I've watched it enough times to realize, like, wow, like, yes, we tend to focus on this giant peak, right? But 10 minutes before was this really low place of like, whoa, how do we do that? I feel like I can't do it. I'll never forget my wife saying, I can't do this. And it was 10 minutes before my son was born, like my last son. And I remember being a dumb husband saying, oh, you can do it. You can do it. And I realized something later, that she was right. In that moment, she could not do it. And the woman she was going to have to become to do it was going to go through a lot of pain. And because she had a kid before, she knew exactly how much growth was coming. And she wasn't wrong saying, I can't do it. But 10 minutes later, she was the woman who did it. Inside of that were a whole lot of emotions and a whole lot of growth. Hard work worth doing to give us our son.
And anyone could do it. So thank you so much, Coach, for joining us. This was exciting, and I know that this is valuable to a lot of people. So just go into their website. And GC, you have some last words?
No, it's a big learning curve for not just me, but I'm sure for everybody listening. You know, when you, like I said, when you think you're living a life of integrity, we probably aren't, but it's a good thing to learn.
Well, remember to like us and subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. I know you follow us, so just show us how much you love us, okay? Because we happen to love you. Coach, thank you. And thank you to all of you for watching us. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.